Every few weeks, my wife and I run into an argument. Over the years, she insists on paying down our mortgages, and I keep trying to explain to her that it does not make any financial sense. So far, I've failed to convince her. This video is dedicated to her. Hopefully, after this, our stars will align. What's happening, everyone? Welcome to Think Finance. My name is Raj, and on this channel, I talk about personal finance, investment ideas, money management tips, and everything that impacts our money. In this video, I want to talk about why it is silly to pay down mortgage, and then talk about a few real-life scenarios to prove my point. Now, you may have heard stories where people talk about how they paid off their mortgage and now feel great. Indeed, I have a colleague at work who doubled down on her payments and paid down her mortgage in 11 years. Any surplus cash, every bonus, everything went into paying down her mortgage. She feels great and is very proud of owning her house 100%. Good for her, but is it a good financial decision? To make things a bit interesting, let's introduce three characters. I have John, a new homeowner in his 30s. Mary, who is in her 40s and is 10 years into her mortgage. And finally, Scott, who is in his late 50s and has 10 years left on his mortgage. Before we jump into these individual scenarios, let's talk about why paying off your mortgage is a bad idea. Most mortgages in the last few years or so have a rate of 3.25% to 4%, or even less these days if you have a stellar credit, which means you have borrowed at historic low rates. This is cheap money. Typically, it would make sense to pay off mortgage if you believe other forms of investments will give you a return less than the interest rate you're paying on the mortgage. Over the long run, stocks return 7 to 8% annually. Investing money rather than paying off your mortgage will give you a higher return. The opportunity cost to not invest in stocks is too high. You are saving less by paying off mortgage, 3 to 4%, versus making more by investing, around 7 to 8% annually. Few more reasons to think about. Home is considered a non-liquid asset since it takes months to sell a property. Compare that to stocks. If you need to deal with emergencies, you can liquidate a portion of your portfolio and raise money. Liquidity is a good reason not to block a good chunk of money in a house. One way to get around this is by having emergency funds. Here is another big one. Tax break is gone. Mortgage interest is tax deductible. If your current mortgage rate is 3.5% and you have a combined federal and state tax rate of 40%, the effective rate on your mortgage is only 2.1%. But if you have no mortgage, no tax break. With that in mind, let's come back to our friends and make this a bit real. For the purpose of this video, we'll assume all of these guys have a mortgage debt of $200K on a 30-year fixed loan with an interest rate of 3.5%. They all won a lottery and are now in a position to pay off the remaining loan amount. If John used the money and paid off the mortgage, he would end up saving $121K on total interest. And the guy now owns his house outright in his 30s. Great, right? See, John is young and should be taking on more risk and try to do more with his $200K. Instead of paying off the mortgage, if John had invested his 200K investment would have grown to 1.5 million in the next 29 years. After deducting the interest John paid on keeping the mortgage, he is still at 1.4 million. Now, if I throw in dividend reinvestment, that number will go up further. This is the opportunity cost of paying off the mortgage. Let's look at Mary. She is 10 years into her mortgage. Assuming her mortgage was 260K, she would have already paid 50% or 83K in interest and would have a pending loan balance of 199K. Like John, Mary is young and she should put this money to work. By paying off her mortgage, Mary is saving only 77K in interest versus making 800K in stocks in next 20 years if she decides to invest. Finally, we have Scott. Now, Scott is in his late 50s and has 10 years left on his mortgage payments. The choice is simple here, and I don't think it makes sense to go into numbers. Unless Scott is super aggressive in life, it does not make sense to invest in stocks. The priority here is financial security and peace of mind. Of course, I'm assuming he has taken the right steps to plan his retirement, meaning funded his retirement accounts appropriately and planned other investments right. Given where Scott is, most will agree it is more prudent for him to use the money and go debt-free. You don't want to deal with a mortgage as you get closer to retirement. Here is the bottom line. In a low interest rate environment, paying off a mortgage makes no sense, especially if you're young. It makes more sense to invest. Having said that, for some people, numbers don't matter, and that's fine. It is a choice some of us make. At times, it is just a matter of peace of mind versus the bottom line. Some people just like the idea of not having that monthly commitment and be debt-free. Also, if you're nearing retirement, paying off your mortgage makes more sense than investing. Why take unnecessary risks? And then it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can split the money between paying off your mortgage and investing for future. Does this make sense? Drop me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. That's all I have, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If this was helpful, hit that like button. And if money gets you going, consider subscribing. Until next time, peace.